Hello everyone. Join me, a small medium at large, as we explore the world of spirit, energy, tarot, mediumship, psychic abilities, angels, oracles, paranormal activity, and basically anything downright spooky. If any, some, or all of those things interest you, then you've come to the right place, my friends. I'm Melanie Mahmood, and welcome to the Spirit Level Podcast. Hello, and well folks, it's a bit wild and windy here in soggy Uterbridge at the time of recording. We have a couple of big storms brewing across the nation and a full moon, so batten down the hatches on the home and the emotional front, folks. Windy weather causes the liver chi to get agitated, and hence you might be feeling a bit agitated too. So my advice, well, alcohol smooths liver chi right out, so treat yourself to a drop of your choice. It's medicinal, and a small Shiraz for me, please, thank you. The full moon can raise old issues, especially emotional ones, so be reflective, and a bit of extra self-care won't go amiss either. So please be kind to yourselves. Any upsets should be quelled by the time the full moon passes. So rest on your laurels and wait a wee while before making any big decisions. It could all just be a storm in a teacup. And before we start the show proper this week, I'd just like to give a little quick shout out to our friend Alex down in London town. I hope you're feeling better, love, and we send you much love and healing all the way from Yorkshire. Coming up on this week's show, Septarian is the featured crystal in Crystal Corner. We double up with Gemini in Cosmic Cruise. There will be more of your listeners' questions. In Mr. M's Menagerie, MOHENJO-DARO is being discussed. In Household Hocus Pocus, we meet the Fae folk and we talk about fairy magic. In the second episode of Maria's Magical Super 6, yoga and meditation are the topics under discussion. And in Straight to the Point, we have some points to aid with digestion and sickness. That's P6 and Li4. So if you're ready, here we go. Welcome to this week's Crystal Corner, and this week we're having a look at what I call an amalgam crystal, because it's actually a mixture of several crystals all into one. So physically, imagine yellow calcite crystals, and that is what this crystal looks like. And it's called Septarian, and is named so because it forms into a crystalline structure with 7 points radiating out in every direction. And it's a mixture of calcite, chalcedony and aragonite. So it has elements and characteristics of all these individual crystals, but together they are the reprogramming and communication stone. Septarian assists in repatterning and reprogramming outdated and no longer needed behaviours, emotions, and harmonises the higher mind with the emotions as well. Septarian also supports self-care and caring for others and Mother Earth. Communication-wise, Septarian is great for public speaking and helping groups communicate together and between each other more effectively. On the healing vibe, Septarian is useful to healers themselves as it can assist with diagnosis and focuses the body's own healing abilities. On a physical level, it supports and assists with SAD and any metabolic or immune system disorders and disorders related to sleep and all systems where generally imbalance is present. Emotionally, Septarian is very grounding and dissolves negativity, so it's good for negative thoughts and depressive disorders. So that's Septarian, folks. Mother Nature being bountiful as always, producing a really clever little crystal. That's exactly the vibe this crystal has. It's very clever.
Star signs, crystals, and tarot cards for you to muse. Here's your ticket for the Spirit Level Cosmic Cruise.
This week's stop on the Cosmic Cruise is with Gemini. Gemini, the twins, falls between the 22nd of May and the 21st of June. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, and it's an air sign. Air signs are thinkers, communicators, and the action folk of the zodiac. They're quick-witted and hungry for knowledge. Some people say that Gemini folk are fickle, as they can change their mind about things in seconds. But really, they're just one step ahead of the rest of us and just sense when it's time to move on. Life is never boring with a Gemini around. Extroverted, flexible and clever, they can be difficult to read as they're often indecisive, and it depends on which way the wind is blowing as to what they may do or decide. On the flip side, they can be somewhat two-faced, like the twins that represent them, having two sides to their personality, which others may not understand or be able to deal with. They can also be over-analytical and get themselves stuck in overthinking, which they find negative, frustrating, and at worst destructive. Communication and technology are the Gemini's secret superpowers, and their sole lesson is to learn to use their communication skills for the greater good, not for manipulative purposes. So great careers for Geminis are anything to do with communication, so public relations, teacher, journalist, consultant, but also engineer, project management, architecture, events management or broadcasting. Famous Geminis include my favourite musician Stevie Nicks, actor Morgan Freeman, supermodel Naomi Campbell and Donald Trump. The planetary crystal for Gemini is Tiger's Eye, very powerful stone for harmony and prosperity. It empowers and protects and enables you to face fears head on and with confidence. Tarot card-wise, Gemini is represented by the major arcana card, the Lovers. Like the twins images, this card is all about duality and deciding on whether to take the high or the low road. Also about personal integrity and a constant battle between right and wrong, often with themselves. So that's Gemini, folks, and if you would like to stand by for your 3-card, 3-month tarot reading. And now it's time for your 3-monthly card reading, Gemini. So we are coming sort of like to the end of February now. So we'll be looking at March, April, going into May perhaps. And the cards that have come out for you are the King of Wands, the Three of Wands and the Page of Pentacles. Now these are all court cards, so there's nothing major going on in this next 3 months. So there's no major shifts or changes. But there are some foundational stuff that is going off. So the King of Wands is about being focused and determined and driven in an idea or a concept or a new project. So it's got your full attention and all of your energy is going towards that at this time. I do feel with the Three of Wands, especially coming up behind this card, that you're wanting to broaden your horizons, even possibly travelling abroad, that's how far, and moving abroad. But it's certainly all about adventure, pushing out of your comfort zone this next couple of months and not being afraid to do so, because it's quite freeing and it will actually give you a lot of pleasure and enjoyment as well. And then we end up with the Page of Pentacles, which I think is all linked to this, and it all links in nicely because it's all about, the Page of Pentacles is all about showing people what you have done, what you have achieved and the work that you've put in. So you are in the middle of it. It's still in the process. There isn't a conclusion one way or another. That's in the next few months. But certainly in the next 3 months you're working hard and you are working towards your goals and your new horizons. How exciting. And that's Gemini.
Star signs, crystals, and tarot cards for you to muse. Here's your ticket for the Spirit Level Cosmic Cruise.
And now it's time for listeners' questions. What do we have this week, darling?
Thank you, Mel. Hello again, everyone. Just the one question this week, Mel, which comes from a dear friend of the show, Claire in Barnsley, who asks, I have a number of crystals that I keep together in the same place. By keeping them together, is there any risk that they might not be as effective?
Oh, hi Kleber. Thank you. It's a really good question and it's quite a complicated one to answer. So, as you know, each crystal possesses its own different energy and its own meaning and its own use. And so, in theory, their energies can repel and supplement each other. But there are some that I wouldn't put together, and you've got to really think about what you're using these crystals for. So to give you an example, I wouldn't put blue lace agate and red jasper together. So when people get depressed, they might go to red jasper to boost their energy and then go to blue lace agate to calm them down and slow their emotions down a bit, dampen things down. But red jasper is always stronger than the blue, so it will completely and utterly obliterate the use of the blue lace agate. Red crystals, as you know, amplify energy. And if you have low energy, a red crystal will boost that low energy. But if you've got depressed energy, it'll boost that as well. So the blue lace agate will slow the process down as well. So then you'll end up making yourself feel worse for longer. So the same could be said of putting carnelian and amethyst together. So carnelian boosts your energy while amethyst calms you down. So putting them together, you're effectively cancelling each other out and sending a very confusing signal to your energy field. So just remember that red crystals are more dominant than green or blue ones, which means your energy is likely to be amplified or the situation is likely to be amplified. And a quick reminder about clear quartz as well, that's an amplifier too. So be careful where you use it. Use your own intuition as well. Personally, I feel that malachite is a bit of a loner and actually likes it that way. She doesn't mix easily with other energies because she's too strong and she can easily whack other crystal energies out and render it useless. But you pick that up when you've been using crystals for some time. So think about your purpose, think about the energy of the crystals individually and use your own intuition.
Great stuff, Mel. Thank you very much. And thank you, Claire, for your question. If you would like to send Mel a question or have your question feature as a 3-card tarot reading or want to get in touch with us for any other matter, including suggestions for show content, guests, or just to get in touch, then here is how to do so.
Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. There are a number of ways you can get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us via email and the address is thespiritlevel22@gmail.com. On Facebook, on the groups, search for The Spirit Level. On Twitter, search for thespiritlevel.co.uk. We have a Twitter handle, which is @thespiritlevel_U, which is a capital U. On Instagram, search for me, Melanie Mahmood, or thespiritlevel.co.uk. Or you can click on the SpeakPipe link in the episode notes and send us a voicemail free of charge. In addition, there are a number of resources for you to download and access on our website, totally free of charge, at www.thespiritlevel.co.uk. We look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome to Mr. M's Menagerie. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode. Today's episode looks at one of the most interesting and perplexing cities from our ancient past. Now there are a number of ancient cities I could have chosen to speak about today. Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe, Angkor Wat and Pompeii to name a few. And they might well feature in future episodes. However, the city I'm going to talk about is probably less well known than those that I've just mentioned, but what happened to its inhabitants and the circumstances leading to its demise defy modern day logic or convention. Today, the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro is our focus. Now Mohenjo-Daro sits on a ridge in the floodplain of the Indus River in Sindh province in modern day Pakistan. It is located about 17 miles from the town of Lakhana. Mohenjo-Daro was built about 2600 BC and went on to become one of the most influential cities of the Indus Valley civilizations. It was a centre for trade, business, architecture, engineering, science, agriculture and learning. Its influence stretched far beyond the Indus Valley itself, and the collective cities of the Indus Valley successfully traded and interacted with settlements and cities as far south as the Arabian Sea, as far west as the Iranian border, as far north as the Himalayas, and as far east as modern-day Myanmar. Mohenjo-Daro was in many respects a remarkable city. It had a planned layout based on a grid of streets, laid out in perfect patterns. At its height, the city probably had between 35,000 to 40,000 residents. The buildings of the city show a degree of design, technology and planning that stand out from other discovered cities in the region. The houses and majority of the buildings were constructed out of identically sized sun-dried bricks of baked mud and burnt wood. The public buildings, of which were the many, suggest that Mohenjo-Daro operated with a high degree of social organisation. The houses were specifically designed to protect the inhabitants from noise and odours and showed a level of planning that was far in excess of other cities in the region. The houses had rooms set aside for bathing, with separate and clearly defined reception rooms and bedrooms. There is evidence that each property and civic building had a waste system, and it is probably fair to say that Mohenjo-Daro built and maintained the world's first urban sanitation system. Wastewater diverted to covered drains which ran the length of the major streets of the city. Now, as the city was in a fertile floodplain, agriculture played a great part in the city's development. The great granary at Mohenjo-Daro was designed with bays and received carts delivering crops from the countryside. There is evidence that the granary had ducts built in to enable air to circulate beneath the stored grain to dry it. There was a large marketplace and buildings for commerce and trade. There was a large public bath with steps down to a brick-lined pool in a colonnaded courtyard. The bath area had been extremely well built, with a layer of natural tar to keep it from leaking, and in the centre stood the pool. Measuring 12 metres by 7 metres with a depth of 2.4 metres, the pool no doubt was used for religious or spiritual ceremonies. There was also an underground furnace that provided heated water. Mohenjo-Daro was a well-fortified city. Although it did not have city walls in the conventional sense, it did have several towers and defensive fortifications. Now, there is evidence that the city had been successfully destroyed and rebuilt at least 7 times. Each time, the new cities built directly on top of the old one, and it appears that flooding was the cause on each occasion. So, all seems good. Commerce and trade are flourishing, the influence of the city is spreading, and the inhabitants are living in what for the age was a technologically advanced and well-run city. But all of that came to an end suddenly around 1700 BC, when it appears that Mohenjo-Daro was abandoned. For almost 3,000 years, Mohenjo-Daro lay undiscovered. That is, until 1911, when a member of the Indian Archaeological Society, conducting a scientific survey in the vicinity, thought he had found a Buddhist temple buried beneath a mound. What he discovered was unlike anything previously seen in the area. Now, excavations at the site started in earnest in the 1920s and 1930s, and it soon became apparent that this was no ordinary archaeological site. As more and more artefacts and items were found, a better understanding of the culture of the city began to be formed. However, what was not, and is still not known, was why and for what reason the city was abandoned. To all intents and purposes, this was a prosperous city with a high level of civic and corporate infrastructure, food was plentiful, and the population was growing. So let's speculate on some of the reasons Mohenjo-Daro was abandoned. A natural disaster of some kind. Well, there is no evidence of seismic or volcanic activity. There are no reported instances in ancient texts in respect of this. The city, due to its proximity to the River Indus, was indeed prone to flooding, and there certainly is evidence that the city had been flooded in the past, but the water levels do not extend to submerging the city in its entirety. How about disease and famine? Whilst this is harder to discount, a disease that would cause the entire city to abandon it would no doubt have been recorded. Mohenjo-Daro sits in a fertile floodplain, and again, whilst there may well have been instances of crops failing, it is highly unlikely that this would cause the population to abandon their homes. And such was the reach and influence of the city, that in times of crisis, help could no doubt be sought from other cities in the region and beyond. Civil unrest. Mohenjo-Daro did not have an absolute ruler or emperor. In addition to its layout and engineering and technological achievements, it stood apart as a city that essentially ruled itself. it was autonomous. And again, there are no recorded issues of any type of civil unrest. How about conflict of some sort? Well, whilst there is historical and documented evidence of raiders from the northwest sweeping down and occupying the Indus Valley, there appears to be no sign of any conflict taking place at Mohenjo-Daro. In fact, if some conflict did take place, there is no evidence of weaponry recovered or significant damage to buildings. In addition, if this was the cause of the city being abandoned, there appears to be no cemetery or repository where bodies were buried. In fact, there is a distinct lack of bodies. Whilst the site is vast and not completely excavated, it remains a mystery as to what caused the populace to abandon their city. But there are bodies that have been found within the excavated parts of the city, and this is where things start to become a bit strange. To date, from a population estimated to have been up to 40,000 people, not more than 40 bodies have been recovered. These bodies appear to be in contorted states and appear in excavated streets and buildings, and it is this fact that makes Mohenjo-Daro so strange. There were reports made in the 1960s that examination of the city revealed larger than normal levels of radiation. This led to a theory that Mohenjo-Daro was subject to a nuclear blast or was subject to weaponry of an advanced technological nature. Now that would explain the lack of bodies, presumably the theory that the bodies of the dead would have been incinerated. This does have some merit, and there are extensive amounts of ash deposits found nearby. As to the atomic blast theory, well, you would expect to see more damage than is present if this took place. However, there is evidence that rocks have become vitrified at the site, which would require immense heat to cause this to happen. Think of the evidence we have at Pompeii, where great heat from the lava flow of the volcano vitrified pottery and stones in the city. That eruption was documented and took place. Whatever happened at Mohenjo-Daro appears not to conform to conventional wisdom or indeed science. So is there any evidence that gives us some idea as to what may have taken place? Well, in a word, no. But that hasn't stopped speculation and conjecture over the years. One of the things that is going to make a definitive explanation about what happened at Mohenjo-Daro difficult is the disrepair of the site. Little or no care has been made by the Pakistani authorities in terms of upkeep and conservation, and many parts of the excavated site are crumbling. And it is estimated that the site could be reduced to dust within the next 10 years or so if remedial action is not carried out. Whatever caused the people of Mohenjo-Daro to leave remains one of the great mysteries of the ancient world, and I'm sure there will be much more speculation, argument and conjecture about it. I'm not sure we will ever really know completely, but as the great fictional detective Sherlock Holmes is quoted as saying, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth." Well, that brings me to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on the episode or on any of the other episodes featured in Mr. M's Menagerie. Next week, I will be taking a look at the legend surrounding King Arthur. So until then, thank you for listening, and it's now back to Mel for the rest of the show.
Welcome to Household Hocus Pocus. Now, once upon a time, a long, long time ago, we were much more connected to nature, the cycles of the moon and all things magical, including creatures, both magical and natural. Think about it. Every single culture and human civilization, no matter where in the world, has a history of or tradition of magical creatures. Often handed down from generation to generation, there are innumerable tales of dragons, unicorns, sprites, gnomes and fairies, nature spirits if you will. And I think this is because they exist or existed, and as I said, in some cases still exist to this day. They're there, trust me. They just work on a different energetic level to us. Despite our modern world, I also think we still crave this connection to nature and magic. It's why nature walks, forest bathing, being in the great outdoors does us the power of good and uplifts the emotions and senses. Is it because it's where we should be? So if you too feel that deep-rooted, ancient connection to the earth and nature, then I invite you to expand your horizons. Consider working with the fae folk, or fairies, as we commonly refer to them. Working with the fae can be rewarding, but a word of warning also, and this is in capital letters, folks. Be respectful at all times, and if they reward you, they will want something in return. So there is a trade to be made, especially at your expense if you displease them. The fae are great for specific areas of work. They hate any imbalances of energy and can help bring order to chaos. They're also very much about protection, and if they like you, they will want to look after you. They can warn about impending weather issues and can also help you connect to your natural powers, even those you're not even aware of, because they can see what you can't. To work with the fae, first you need to attract them, but they are gentle and very shy, so you will need to create a welcoming place for them to visit, and that means sometimes bring a little of the outdoors indoors. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a garden or an outdoor space of your own, you can still make a fairy garden in an empty fish tank or a bowl. That would be perfect to create an indoor fairy dell. If you are lucky enough to have your own outdoor space, pick a position that would normally get the rays of the full moon on it to create your fairy space. Then let your creativity go wild. The fae love beauty and shiny, shiny things, so add some sparkle, jewellery, charms to your creation. They also love natural sounds like a water feature or wind chimes. Also make sure to add magical plants such as rosemary, thyme, foxgloves and roses. Leave them little gifts and let them know they are welcomed, loved and respected. You'll know when they are about when you suddenly smell something sweet like a flower, strawberries or honey, and you might even feel fairy kisses, a little tickle on your cheek, often as you're just about to fall asleep. And I've just had a ruffle up the back of my hair as I said that, so thank you, my fae friends. I think they like when I'm writing or talking about them. Animals can see and sense energies that we can't, so if you have a pet and it suddenly starts playing and jumping about at something unseen to you, the fairy or the fae may be paying a visit because they love animals and they love to play. Fae like to be inquisitive and nosy, and they can move things about, so if you start to work with the fae and they tinker about with your stuff and things disappear and reappear where you know you haven't touched it, then we get that a lot here at Shea Mahmood. Finally, there is such a thing as fairy dust. It's a real thing. Little trails of sparkles that let you know that you've had a visit. So leave little gifts for your new fae friends and sweet treats and ask them to assist you with your magical works. And don't forget to affirm that magical incantation, folks. I believe.
Welcome to episode 2 of Maria's Magical Super 6, and thank you for coming back. When Mel and Rash asked me to make a contribution to their amazing podcasts, it seemed like perfect timing to share my spiritual journey over the last 6 years. So October 2016 was when it all began for me, only 6 years ago. It feels like a lifetime, but also a blink of an eye at the same time. So as 2022 is a 6-year numerologically, represented in the tarot by the Lovers, a card signifying collaborations and partnerships, it seemed fitting to look back over the knowledge and the practices that I have immersed myself in to get to where I am now. And I share this with you, lovely listeners, in the hope that it may provide inspiration and some practical examples of how an ordinary wife and mum of 3 can change their life from the mundane to the magical. So this week I'm going to be sharing with you some deeper insights into the yoga and meditation practices that I've learnt about and worked with a practical example of some breath work and a meditation for you to experience. At first, a little bit of a story for you. So taking things back to basics. Last week I spoke to you about Kundalini Yoga. I want to speak to you today about the entirety of yoga. So yoga means yoke or union, the joining of the human and the divine from within us. This is practiced in many different permutations or styles that have been passed down since the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali from around 300 BC. So this is an ancient body-mind practice which far exceeds the Western interpretation of yoga being just a posture or asana-based practice. Patanjali wrote of the 8 limbs or branches of the Ashtanga yoga system, which include the yamas, which are universal codes of conduct on how we relate to the outside world. So such concepts as ahimsa you may have heard of, which means non-violence, satya, which is truthfulness, asteya, which is non-stealing, and there are other couple of concepts as well within this, but these are basic, common or natural laws for humanity. So it's really stripping things back to how we behave as human beings on a really basic level. He also wrote about niyamas, which are personal codes of conduct, such as cleanliness, contentment, discipline, self-study and self-reflection, and the concept of surrendering to higher powers, so that which sit outside of ourselves but are also a part of our humanness. He wrote about asana, the postures of yoga. So this is what has really been interpreted in the Western world as what yoga means, a series of movements and breath work and a bit of relaxation. But as you're hopefully understanding now from what I'm sharing with you, yoga is about way, way more than just posture. He talks about pranayama and teaches about pranayama, breath development. He talks about and shares the concept of pratyahara, which is withdrawal from senses. So here we're moving towards meditation. So there's the concept of dharana, which is concentration, which then moves towards dhyana, which is meditation. And then the concept of samadhi, which is the integration of all of these aspects. And as a yogi, if you're following this path in a truly spiritual way, then this would be something that would be an aspirational state to achieve through our devotion to practice. So all schools of yoga have aspects of the above contained in their teachings and to various degrees. But as with all things, over time, there have emerged many, many variations. Kundalini yoga is a very different yoga altogether, and this was the yoga that I studied back in 2017. This was brought to the West by Yogi Bhajan in the late 1960s, so really, in the grand scheme of things, it is a relatively new yoga strand. His teachings contain aspects of Sikhism, whereas most other yoga schools are rooted in the Sanskrit language, which is more closely associated with Hinduism and Buddhism. So Kundalini Yoga has a structured format with purposeful kriyas, or sets of exercises and meditations which focus on particular emotions, energy centres, or physical systems within the body. There's a strong emphasis on mantra and music, using sound or nad to help shift stuck energy in the various layers of the body. So anyway, enough of me talking. Let's try some meditation now, shall we? So I want to make sure that you're not driving or needing to focus on another task for a few moments now as you're listening. So it may help if you are working or driving while you're listening, just to make a note of the time on the podcast and maybe come back a little bit later so that you can take the full benefit of this guided meditation. So getting comfortable in your seat right now. So finding somewhere to sit that you can feel supported on your back, maybe cross-legged on the floor or on a chair or even sitting on the bed. Trying to make sure that you've got your feet touching the floor. If you're sitting on a chair, you have some contact with the earth. I just want to guide you now to close your eyes and just take your inner gaze with your eyes closed to the space between your eyebrows and just start noticing the breath and the body. Beginning to mindfully relax your body now by taking some deeper belly breaths as you breathe in, feeling the belly swell, breathing out and letting the belly come back towards the spine. Maybe correcting your posture, sitting up nice and straight, opening your heart space, the chest area, lifting the crown of your head, dropping your shoulders, breathing in, breathing out. Each conscious breath is an opportunity to soften. You're beginning to notice any other areas of tension in the body now. Maybe the shoulders, the back, the forehead, or the jaw. Just take the breath to these areas. Wherever there is tension in the body, breathe into these spaces, noticing if you're allowing any tension to creep across the forehead. Softening these muscles, allowing the arms to relax. Maybe resting the backs of the hands on your knees or your thighs. Just having the palms facing upwards, just to receive this moment of peace. As you breathe in and breathe out. Long, deep breaths. You might want to sigh or out breath to release tension. Feeling everything slowing down around you now. Just making a note of what's coming up for you. It might surprise you what insights you get when you begin to slow things down. When you're ready now, just bring your breath back to a normal rate of inhale and exhale. Opening your eyes whenever you're ready. I hope that you enjoyed that little moment of peace. And I do hope that this story that I'm sharing of my experiences has helped you in some way, either inspiring you on your own healing and spiritual journey, maybe wanting to do something different. So if you feel called, please reach out via the usual podcast contacts. It would be my privilege to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all, and also to all of my teachers and all of my students from the past 6 years, as you've all played such an important part on my own magical journey.
Blockages, aches, stress, or pain in a joint? Then let's break the needles out and get straight to the point.
Welcome to Straight to the Point. This week we're having a look at pericardium 6. Have you ever seen those travel bans that you can get to stop travel sickness? Well, those bands are using acupressure to stop nausea, vomiting and stomach pain. And the point that is being used is pericardium 6, P6 or inner gate. If you take your 3 middle fingers and place them horizontally across your opposite wrist, with the fingers resting on the crease of your wrist, P6 lies between the 2 guider muscles running up to the wrist, on the edge of where the index finger sits. It's a really difficult point to needle, I can tell you. But by putting pressure on that spot, you can prevent and alleviate nausea relating to anything like travel or motion sickness, pregnancy-related morning sickness, stomach pain, headache and anxiety. The bands are good because they keep the pressure on, so they're good to have in the first aid kit. I used to stock them at the clinic for pregnancy-related sickness and had really great results with them. Another master point for anything stomach or digestive related is LI4 or Union Valley, so that's large intestine 4. Be careful, and a word of warning about this point. Please do not use this point if you are pregnant, as it is an elimination point. During or to induce labour is fine, but not during pregnancy, please. So LI4 is located right on the top of the mound of flesh that sits between the thumb and the first index finger. LI4 is used for so many issues. I could do an entire show on what it can do, but it's just really useful for pain management, anything digestive, detoxification or headache. I would use the thumb to stimulate this point, as it will hit it because it's quite a big point surface area wise. So again, pinch or deeply massage this point to gain relief. As always, let me know how you get on, and I hope this helps.
Blockages, aches, stress, or pain in a joint? Then let's break the needles out and get straight to the point.
Well, that's it for this episode, folks. Coming up in next week's show, we have MOLDAVITE as the featured crystal in Crystal Corner. We scuttle across the sand with Cancer in Cosmic Cruise. There will be some more of your listeners' questions. In Mr. M's Menagerie, the legend of King Arthur is being discussed. In Household Hocus Pocus, the power of nature is harnessed with storm magic. Could have done with that this week. In the second episode of Take Care of You, Amanda Parnell discusses self-love. And in Straight to the Point, we have some points to alleviate stress, anxiety and heart palpitations. That's REN17 and Heart 7. If you would like to help support the show, there's a link at the end of the episode notes where you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link or the heart icon on the podcast website. Your support is and always will be appreciated. So it's a big thank you to Buzzsprout for hosting us and for the technical help and advice from the folks at Audacity and Ophonics. Big thank you to my beloved husband and producer, Mr. M, for his help and support. Massive thank you to Maria for her input this episode. And a massive thank you to you, our listeners, wherever you may be, for your continued support and your lovely messages. Please subscribe and review our podcast. Your feedback will help us improve the show. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox or via your usual podcast provider. Please visit the website www.thespiritlevel.co.uk where you can book a personal reading with me wherever you are in the world, enrol on one of the courses, browse the online store for the crystals that we talk about on the show, or just get in touch. We always love to hear from you. So until next time, folks, look after each other and love and light to you all.